Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Business of Fun podcast. It's me, Dave Wakeman. Let me know how you're doing. The situation for the live event industry, the live entertainment industry, is still iffy at best, I'd say. Reports, ratings are down for live entertainment. There's more competition for viewers' eyeballs than ever before. There have been instances where people have been able to be in the stands. In a lot of cases, though, the tickets have not sold out. So it's an interesting time. Tell me what you're thinking. Send me an email, dave@davewakeman.com. It's interesting to keep an eye on how things continue to develop. I feel that it's going to be one of these up and down situations. One of the things I've been watching is how Germany is handling this, because the Bundesliga, I think they capped it at 1,000 fans over the weekend, but they had fans in their stadiums depending on the state. So it was a state-by-state situation, but it was interesting to see fans at soccer matches, especially in Europe and Germany, where the culture around the game is really, really intense. Probably mimics a lot of what we see with college football, which Alabama, in theory, is going to kick off on Saturday. But we see that the Notre Dame and Wake Forest game maybe get canceled this weekend or postponed. I'm not sure which way they're going to term it. Still a lot of crazy, crazy stuff going on. So again, as I say all the time on these intros, let me know what's going on with you. You are generous enough to share your ears and your attention with me. So let me know how everybody's holding up. It's dave@davewakeman.com. This is a special episode because Zach Yaqub from getajobinsports.com or howtogetajobinsports.com interviewed me for his podcast. He's a little kid that lives around the corner from me. So I had a chance to talk with him for his podcast, and I said, send it over and I'll share the conversation with you. Zach's a super nice kid. His idea is he loves sports and he wants to get a job in sports when he gets older. He's still in high school. How can I say no to a high school kid from D.C. who's looking to get a job in sports? I couldn't. We had a good conversation, though. He asked me about my career. He asked me about networking. He asked me about all kinds of really interesting things. And he's a really, really great kid. So I wanted to post this conversation to the podcast stream. I also have two podcasts that I'm prepping right now. One's going to be with Ireland's most famous marketer, Colin Lewis, and it's great. And the other one is with Aaron Canopy. He says hit all the vowels. And those are going to go up over the next couple days as well. So I got a little jammed up. My homeschooling situation has been hardcore lately. I'm going back to fifth grade all over again. So that's been keeping me a little bit preoccupied. But make sure you check out some of my partners. BookingProtect.com. Booking Protect's the global leaders in refund protection. Some great stuff on the blog. Make sure you reach out to Kat, Simon, Kath, all the people over there. Check out the Booking Protect Instagram feed. Kieran's doing a great job of posting pictures, quotes, things from around the world of entertainment to keep our minds on the prize and keep us focused on positive things right now. So check them out, bookingprotect.com/home. You can get our ebook that we put together, What Matters in Tickets Now. It came out at the beginning of the year, but some of the ideas are still extremely relevant. There's a great article by Kat Spencer up about rebuilding relationships now. It's very important. And if you have been thinking about ways to either generate new revenue or make sure you keep give your customers peace of mind, refund protection is probably a good idea to think about right now. So reach out to somebody from the Booking Protect team. Check them out. Make sure you also check out the We Will Recover website, wewillrecover.live. It is a project put together by Einar and Martin from ActivityStream and the team over there at ActivityStream. Brought together people from around the world to bring ideas, perspectives, worksheets, classes, all kinds of stuff about recovery. So it's a great resource. It's great people. There's a whole series of things about what we've learned and how to not waste a crisis. Friend of the podcast, Aubrey Bergauer, did an interview earlier this week that just got posted. So I'm talking about don't waste this crisis. Make sure that you create some kind of lasting change and improve your business for the better now. So check it out, wewillrecover.live. And then finally, it's a Wednesday, September 23rd, so we are 41 days away from an election in the United States that Has seemed to be going on forever. But make sure that you are registered. Yesterday was National Voter Registration Day. Make sure your voter registration is handy. Make sure you know the specific rules for voting in your jurisdiction, and make sure you vote. The United States has some of the lowest voter turnout of any industrialized nation, and the I Voted concert initiative is working to make sure that that is not the case this year. So go to ivotedconcerts.com or visit them on Twitter. Find out how you can get involved. Find out how to make sure you get your vote in and counted, and take part in the American democracy. If you're an American, if you're not, encourage your American friends to vote. Okay, check it out, ivotedconcerts.com. But without any further ado from me, any more blabbing and all of that, here's my conversation with Zach Yaqub on the Business of Fun. Well, actually, it's on howtogetajobinsports.com, but on the Business of Fun.
This is Zach Yaqub from howtogetajobinsports.com, and I'm here with Dave Wakeman, principal at the Wakeman Consulting Group. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Nice to talk to you, man.
So tell me more about the Wakeman Consulting Group.
Well, so I'll give you the short answer, which is like I became a consultant because after I'd done a couple of big projects and sold the last company I started, I felt like I was completely unemployable in a normal way. So I figured I better start my own business. But a lot of stuff what I do is focused on strategy and revenue. And a lot of that work takes me into the world of sports and entertainment around the world. So I've worked with people recently before the pandemic came down. I got a chance to go to Australia to talk to the Australian Football League and talk to them about their marketing. I've worked with people in the English Premier League and soccer, the major sports in the States, all kinds of things. But the core of it is helping people understand that if they don't differentiate themselves in a world that's filled with algorithms and noise, that it's a very tough thing to get people to give you their attention in their business. So that, so really at heart, I'd say I'm a very, how would I put it? Loudmouth marketing consultant.
All right. Well, now I need the long story. Tell me more specifically about what you do.
Oh, well, it's really just a long way of how I got here. Which I think was like one of the questions was like, you were kind of curious about the path that people take to get to where they are now. Mm. And so I started out actually back in the 90s, start opening nightclubs with a company called Creative Concepts. But the concept we ran was called Boogie Nights. And so we opened up nightclubs, discos all over the country in these markets that were suburbs that were underserved. So we brought urban entertainment to suburban markets. So Chicago, St. Louis, Houston, Fort Lauderdale, we opened these nightclubs. And so in 1999, I moved to Seattle, Washington, because the short story is that in St. Louis, the nightclub was a flop after we had been successful, all these other places. And I was kind of like, I don't know what to do with myself. So I saw this thing about the Jimi Hendrix Museum, which is the Experience Music Project. Now it's called Mopop in Seattle. And I said, you know what? I don't know anybody in Seattle. I'm going to move to Seattle. And I'm going to help open this museum. And so eventually I'm helping open the Experience Music Project. And it was due to my background in nightclubs. But before that, I had to figure out stuff to do with myself. So I ended up getting some of the lowest grade, awful sports jobs ever to get me through. So it was like game day staff. I worked for the Seahawks and for the Supersonics. And I mean, we're talking about like below running and getting me coffee. It was like awful, but it opened up the world of sports to me. And then I worked with the Seattle Theater Group, so STG, which is the Paramount and the Moore theaters in downtown Seattle. And it was because the guy said I had a friendly face, which, I'll leave that up to you whether or not that's true or not, since we're looking at each other. And from there, though, after that, the museum was opened by Paul Allen, who helps found Microsoft, with his sister Jody. And Jody said, I don't know what you do, but you're very good at selling yourself to people. And we want you to do that for the museum. So I ended up having a chance to work with her and some of the other people in revenue generating roles. And at the age of like 24 or so, it taught me about marketing and selling. And from there, after a few years, I moved to New York. I did not know exactly what I was going to do, but I ended up getting a job with a guy called Jonathan at Americana Tickets in New York. It was the oldest ticketing company in New York City. It's still going, thankfully. And that opened me up to being able to work with Broadway, with Madison Square Garden. But the big one was American Express. So I helped the American Express Centurion card, which is the black card, be able to deliver tickets to events all over the world for their people. And from there, I helped Yellowtail create this concept to take their wines to 36 cities around the country at tailgate parties to get them into a new market, which helped get them into to Costco, which helped make Yellowtail what it is today, which is, you don't know, you're too young. It's not very good wine though. And so then from there, I started my own business, and that's now how I became me. Because at that point, it was like there was no job that said, can you do this? Can you do that? And so I had to create my own thing.
All right. So with
That
American,
was long. That was the longest I've ever talked about myself.
you're good.
It was completely uncomfortable.
That was a great rundown. So I just have a few questions about that. So with
Sure.
Americana
Go ahead.
Tickets, you talked about working, with American Express. So
Mhm.
you weren't directly selling tickets. You were just advancing the way that they sell tickets. Tell me more about that.
So how it worked was American Express has a concierge program, and they have an 800 number if you have a platinum card or any of the above ones. But the black card is like, it was super special, and because you had to spend at the time, I believe, like it was $1 million a year or more on your credit card. And I think it's still invitation only, but they were trying to work because there were some competitors to differentiate the card from other competitors. And the challenge was being able to get people tickets, because travel and entertainment were the two things that were like the most important to American Express card members. So they had always struggled to be able to offer tickets in a way that they could get them anything. I happened to be able to help them solve that problem. And it seems, don't undersell yourself as you get older, like be proud of all the, like this thing you're doing here, be proud of it. Right. Because I didn't know how unique this was, but it was a combination of being in the right place at the right time with technology, because the technology had advanced to the point where it made it easier for me to connect with people and understand who I needed to get in contact with, or how I needed to deal with people to get tickets for things. And then my ability to build relationships with people. It was very helpful. And so it was like the combination of technology and my relationship building, which helped solve that problem ultimately for the Centurion card concierge program. And so I would end up being like their source for tickets, but I would not necessarily sell them directly. I would sell them directly to Amex, but I was sort of just, they would already have what they needed in place, and they would just call me for it. And it was like a huge trust-based thing. It was great. There was a lot of responsibility in honoring that trust. So, but yeah, I was like very rarely talk to an end customer for a long time, but I would, we would sell a ton of tickets, and it was like it was successful for them. It was successful for me. It was really great. And I still talk to a lot of those people today. So, so hopefully that means that wasn't too bad at my job.
So you talked about building relationships, building
Mhm.
connections. Tell me more about networking.
So networking, it's super important. I think that you should always be kind of reaching out and trying to either help people or add value to people. The problem for networking, and where networking gets a bad rap, is that there's far too many people who think about networking as, what can people do for me? And I try to think of networking as like, what can I do for you, or what we can do together? And I found that to be very, very, it changes the dynamic in the networking, in the way you network. Because if I'm going to do you a favor, or if I have some information that I can share with you, or if I have somebody I want to introduce you to, or, if there's anything I can do that's of value to you, it changes the way that the person's going to view you. Right. It's, if you do enough favors for people, everywhere you go there, people are going to be like, hey, I had nothing but a good time with Dave. Dave's a great guy. Right. So, and I sort of that's the way I view it. It's like, wherever I can help somebody or do somebody a favor, or just be valuable or helpful to somebody, I try to do that. And that's how I think of networking, is like, just helping people, it can be a very tough and lonely world. And so if there's some way that I can help somebody achieve a little bit of success or be a little more successful, or just even make somebody feel good about themselves, I try to do that. And it took me a long time to get there, because sometimes I used to be a lot grumpier. Now I'm a lot less grumpy. The longer the pandemic goes, the less grumpy I get.
That's great.
Because it's tough out there. People need a little bit of a little more levity.
Yeah.
But
So
so was that an okay answer? Did I
yeah, that
duck
was
any?
great. Yeah.
Okay,
So
great.
earn their respect, build trust, and
Yeah,
provide value is what you would say.
yeah,
So
exactly right.
yeah.
Yeah, and I try to like the thing with, like, you're doing this podcast video series, right? And I try to do the same thing with with a podcast that I started, was to give people like a little bit more of my voice, so that you could see that, like, I mean, I take what I do seriously, but I don't take myself seriously. So then the thing is like, I didn't want to have a wall where people thought I was just like um, grumpy all the time, which I am grumpy a lot, but that's for a different reason.
Yeah, and I think people can tell it's not grumpy because the podcast is called The Business of Fun, right?
Yeah, exactly right. That's right. Yeah. And it's all about people who are, for people who are marketing and selling and involved in the business of live entertainment, because it was kind of, the title came from a joke that we had in the nightclubs. And it was like, oh, this is like totally the business of fun. Right. And, we're throwing the party, we are the key to the party. And it sort of translated through all the things I've done. So then when I was trying to name the thing, I was like, the even for me, who is a incredibly adept at self-promotion, uh, naming the podcast after myself seemed like a little bit of a reach. So I was like, I got to come up with something besides just Dave's podcast.
Yeah, you already got the
That was what
consulting.
it is. Yeah, exactly right. I mean, come on. I mean, my ego is like, it's totally healthy and all, but I was like, at a certain point, it all comes a little bit absurd.
Yeah, just call it Dave.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, so when you Google Dave, it's just me. It's just this big head sitting in your screen. That would be scary for everybody, I'm pretty sure.
So you're talking about live entertainment. They've certainly, had to navigate through this pandemic
Mhm.
in a unique way. Tell me
Yeah.
about, what you've had to do.
Well, it's been tough. It's I mean, I'm fortunate, like, right, my wife and family and me and my family, we're totally fine, right? There's a lot of people though that I've worked with and know all over the world that are struggling, because this is something that people don't have a playbook for.
Mhm.
And it is something that um, it challenges all of the processes and all of the assumptions we've made about our businesses, our personal lives, probably our relationships. It just challenges so many of the things I think that many of us hold true. And so in my role, I've been, again, I'm pretty fortunate. Like, over the years, we've done pretty well. There's nothing's falling off. The wheels aren't falling off the Dave Wakeman bus today. Today, it's been for me is to be like a resource for people, right? Because I know that nobody has the answer for this thing, right? Because we've never, in our lifetimes, none of us have dealt with this, and this is a unique combination of events all coming together at once. So for me, I've tried to be a resource for people. I say, hey, look, I tell everybody, call me if you just want to talk, right? Because one of the things I think that's misunderstood or not appreciated nearly enough is, the psychological and the mental challenge that people are dealing with, right? I mean, you're what, 15?
16, yeah.
16, right? I mean, it's tough, right? You can't see your friends like you would in a normal time, right? My son's 10. He can't go see his friends and like play soccer and do all the things. You know, I'm 45. It's tough, right? It's, because you're like, you can't just go like hop down to the corner or like, go to the gym or anything. It's tough. So there's that mental aspect. So, I'm like, hey, look, if you need somebody to talk to, come to me, right? I'm here. I don't need anything. We just talk because you need somebody to talk to. I've also created some classes and some, to do the podcast and do all these things to help people learn and like bring people's, lessons learned from around the world from people who are in, like my friend Greg Turner in China, um, you know, Angela Higgins and Joe Michelle, who are my friends in Australia, along with Ali Scheuer from the AFL, all these people, collect some of the ideas and some of the things they're learning or some of the things they're dealing with, and bring them here closer to Europe or the US, where we're a little bit, further behind their timeline. So helping do that. And that's, so just keep controlling the things I can control and adding value where I can add value to help people, you know, stabilize themselves, both, professionally and personally, and then help figure out ways so people can move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, your podcast certainly, can take the edge off a lot of people, and with the experience you have, they could learn a thing or two.
Well, I mean, I think to that point, I think we can all learn from each other, right? I mean, you started your project because you were just interested in like how do people get involved in sports, and I think that learning the process that you went through is something people can learn from, because sometimes what happens is when we get a few years down the road, like me, or a lot of people even further down the road than me, is we forget what it's like to be in your shoes, or we forget what it's like to be in the shoes of a fan, or we forget what it's like to not know what we know now. And sometimes that's great, and then other times that's a really bad thing, because we can make assumptions built or decisions built off of things we know, and the context of the decision we're making may not be accurate anymore. So it's not just learning from me. If I'm successful in being me, it's because I maintain a curiosity, and I maintain the ability to always be curious about people, and to always look for what's next, and like look for what's new, and look for what's changing and what's the same, and like kind of always really kind of reinvent myself. And that's, so if anybody learns anything from me, I hope it's that like you don't just get to one spot and it's fixed. It's a constant changing and reinventing of who you are.
All right. So you got to have a growth mindset in this industry.
I would say so. It seems to benefit me. I know it's sometimes a challenge, because sometimes it becomes very difficult to create change.
Mhm.
And there's business models and there's ways of doing things that fall in the trap of, this is the way we've always done things. And it's not like people start out with that mind, like saying, I'm just going to stick to the status quo. It's just that like the incentives become so rigid and so overwhelming that it becomes, even if something's not working as well as it could, it's very difficult to change that. And so I think wherever we can, all of us owe each other a responsibility to continue to push, to grow, and to change, and to develop new ideas and new skills and new ways of doing our jobs, and marketing and selling what we're doing, because the world around us is constantly changing. So we have to be knowledgeable about what the world looks like through the eyes of the people we're trying to serve, because if not, then we get left behind.
Absolutely, adapt and grow. So going back to your experience, you talked about starting a company. Tell me about that process.
Well, so I'm probably not the best person to talk to about this thing, because it wasn't like I had like a master plan or a master business plan. So when I started this consulting thing 13 years ago now, I guess it is, it started out on a Thursday afternoon, I think in November of 2007. So 2007, if you're 16, you were born in 2004. You wouldn't even remember this. This is too long ago for you. It was like probably right before the financial crisis happened in 2008. So the timing could not have been better for me to get out from under to get out of business and like go do something else. And I didn't know exactly what to do. And so I just ended up having a friend call me and go, hey, look, we're doing this thing with Odwalla, which Coca-Cola owned Odwalla at the time. And it was a health food product. And so can you help us with like some experiential marketing thing? You did also this stuff with Yellowtail. I was like, sure, great. So then I started out working on that. And then somebody else called me about a different thing. I think was something to do with helping promote the Affordable Care Act for President Obama. And so then I did some of this stuff. And then all of a sudden I would start writing ads for people, and I would start doing some trainings, and I did some stuff around project management and leadership. And I had no plan. So that's a long way of getting to it. I had no plan. I just started out looking for things that were interesting and looking for things that people would let me do to help them out. Over time, I realized, well, that's fun, but let me think about what I can really do that's valuable to people and that would be really helpful to people. And that's where I got to strategy and, marketing and revenue, because I found that most of the time it's the root cause. It's like getting things right from the very start that can make or break a program, a business, any initiative. And I'm a bad example of that because I've been able to do this, but I had to reset and think this through, and, using my own experience and understanding like, hey, look, you can shoot and spray and pray all over the place, but realizing that's not necessarily the best idea helped me come back and like kind of narrow things in and think through how you can add value to folks. And that, for me, that's through helping people understand that this process of strategy really revolves around, what's the value you want to create, who's the customer you're trying to reach, and then how you're going to reach them. And, kind of always having that ongoing conversation with yourself.
All right. So you would agree it's not about how successful you can be, it's how much value you can bring to other people.
So I would say that the value you can create, usually if you focus on how much value you can create for people, oftentimes you will be you can be successful, but you have to make sure that the value you're creating has a benefit to the market that you're trying to serve, right? Because there's tons of stuff that I like to do, but I can't figure out a way to get people to pay me money for it. But so like and I would tell people, do have hobbies, do spend time on hobbies, do take a break. But always think about like the question I'll sit with when I'm kind of like, well, what do I want to do right now? Or what should I be doing right now? Is like, well, what can I do? Where can I add value? Or if there's something I see, I go, well, how can I add value around this? And this goes back to like how we're dealing with the pandemic. My thing is like, I understand because I've had to reinvent myself several times. And it's kind of like I told you earlier, it's a process of constant reinvention. So helping people understand what reinvention and rethinking your business looks like has been something that's been valuable for folks now, right? And that's something I can do very easily for people because it's something that I've done before. So, it's kind of always being conscious of how you create value for folks and then making sure it fits into the people you're trying to reach.
All right.
And
So
you can make money off of that. So.
Yeah. Go for value first and success.
Yeah, exactly right. Don't try to back into the value afterwards, because I think that's where people become commodities, because you're like going, well, I've got this solution, but what makes the solution valuable is the difference, right? Because think about it like this. If you're thirsty, a water or a Coke or anything might look totally fine. So what's the value? Oh, it's like thirst quenching, right? Think about all the ways that you impact people, because maybe if somebody's coming from, like, think about Gatorade, right? If you come from, you're thirsty, water or Gatorade works, but electrolytes and like replenishes your body and all these things, it makes a more compelling story. And that's what really value comes down to, is you're telling a story about how working with you or your business is going to improve the person you're serving's business and life. It's going to make things easier and better for them. And that's really what I mean. That's when I'm talking about value, that's what I mean.
All right. So are you a one-man show?
I have people that work with me, but most of the time it's just me. I will bring people in with specialties on project to project.
All right. So do you ever interview people to see if they should work with you, or do you ever do that? Do you ever interview people?
I don't typically interview people, but usually what it is I will find people and I will build a relationship with them the same way we were talking about networking earlier, to make sure that like their ideas align with mine, their point of view aligns with mine, their ability to deliver on the promises I make align with mine. So I guess in a way I do interview people, but it's not like a formalized interview thing. I guess, which is what I'm saying, is I don't have the answer to tell you, like, how many piano cleaners or tuners are there in New York City? I can't help you with those questions because I don't know. I don't know those.
All right. So, 13 years you've been with this company. It's grown exponentially. I'm just going to list some of the people you've worked with because I saw this on your website and my jaw was just dropping. Amazon, Best Buy, Nike, Microsoft, Starbucks. How do you even get a call with these companies? How do you even get on their radar?
I am an incredibly adept self-promoter. I am, good God, I am awful when it comes to like promoting myself, which means I'm great at it. I'm completely shameless. The way I feel it is I'm just trying to help people. I'm trying to add value. So I don't look at it as like a sales process. I don't look at it as like anything like skeezy or sleazy or anything. I just reach out to people. I will use, there's 4 ways that I look at how I grow my business. So one is I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of networking, and then I always am asking for referrals. So like it's a constant process. And so you're looking at, um, you know, 13, 14, a whole lifetime full of people that I work with over the over the years. And so it doesn't come all at once either. So it's just like you keep chipping away at it, and then all of a sudden you have this really great like history of people you've worked with, right? I mean, last year I was fortunate enough to bring in people that when I first started out thinking through the business in like any kind of considered way, that for the first time last year, I was able to get some of those really big names that I said, if I work with these people, I'm going to have totally made it on my list. And I was able to add them last year. So it was great. So I continue to just keep like showing up, right? Adding value, speaking, writing, asking people, hey, who should I be talking to, right? And eventually you start getting introductions to these people, right? It's because the big thing is don't get overwhelmed by the name of the business. Mm-hmm. You're still dealing with people. Mm-hmm. And so the basics of, adding value, being a good person, being helpful and useful, it still applies no matter if the person is a solo practitioner like me or works for a huge company like Amazon or Nike or Citibank, or, even when I did stuff for, in elections like President Obama, right? It doesn't matter. They're still people. They still have issues and challenges that they need help with. And if you can create value to help those people, then you can get in. You can do it. It's not always easy, but if you're consistent and you're focused and you know how you add value and you know who you create value for, if you're consistent, it doesn't guarantee you that you're going to get all these people, or you're going to be able to work with all these people, but it does give you an advantage, because most people are, not always going, these are the 10 people I'm trying to reach. These are the 10 businesses that will take my business to the next level. Let me figure out how I can add value to them. So if you do that and you do it consistently, it will be helpful to you.
I love that piece of advice right there. Don't be intimidated by the brand name, because they're just people like
you.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. It's I often joke about this, and what grade are you going to be going into? 11th?
11.
Okay. So if you cut this part out, if this offends like any future colleges for you, I often go like this. People go, oh my God, if you go to Harvard, then it must be made. And I go, I've met more dummies from Harvard than I have from any other school. So don't be intimidated by the business name. Focus on the people, and that's what I do. And it's because I think when I was younger, I had might have had a tendency to be a little bit intimidated by some of those things. But then having the opportunity to work for Paul Allen and his sister Jody, that helped a lot, because then you're able to see the person, and it takes away a lot of that, that fear, that apprehension, that anxiety that you might get, because you're like going, well, who am I to reach out to like a executive at a Fortune 500 company? Well, I can tell you from my track record that I'm a fairly competent marketer, so they probably are grateful to hear from me, unless I'm acting like a complete knucklehead.
So you said that one of the 4 pillars of growing your business is speaking. One of the ways that you've done it. Yep. Tell me about your experience as a keynote speaker.
So this speaking gig has been it's been incredible, because it's allowed me to speak all over the world, and I'd say that speaking is one of the most powerful ways to make yourself appear to be an expert in the world, because you have a chance to capture people's attention. The challenge is that you have to also be respectful of their attention, and that means you can't mail it in. I like to tell the story of the first time I spoke, which was at a project management thing in DC here. And I had 45 minutes to give a presentation on the early in the evening, and my 45-minute presentation that I had laid out took about 22 minutes, and I was dripping in sweat by the end of it. So don't be afraid to be to learn and learn on the job of speaking, because people want the content, they need it. The big thing about doing it well, though, is, over time you'll create a persona for yourself. So when people meet me, they sometimes think a little that they're surprised that I'm not as like over the top as I might be when I host a podcast or when I'm on stage, because the thing is, you have to get people. It's like marketing. You have to get people to pay attention to you, and you don't do that by droning on and being dull and boring. So you make sure you can perform the thing, know the stuff. Don't try to tell people too much, right? Tell them just what they need to know. Build a narrative, right? I try to make 3 or 4 key points in any like hour-long speech I'm making. I try to mix it in with stories and examples that people will use or recognize, or that are relatable to people's lives. Like last year, I had the chance to go to Australia and give 2 keynotes, and one in Sydney, one in Melbourne. The one in Sydney was for it was the opening keynote at the first time they've ever done this concert. So I was the first person this conference ever heard from, which can only be uphill from there, is what I told the people. But I talked about change, and I said, look, change is constant, right? You don't need courage to change. Change is going to happen for you no matter what. What you can do, though, is you can create the conditions that will allow you to control change and direct it in a manner that maybe gives you a better chance of success. And I talked about the way that Nick Saban says, right, look, the process is not about like focusing on the 60 minutes at the end of the game. The process is about controlling the things that are right in front of you. It's doing the things you control. And then I talked about Pat Riley and talking about, the only thing that's certain in life is change. And so that, like, when change raises her beautiful face, you must embrace her, right? And I use those things. And I talked about, right, the vision that I forgot the guy's name now, but had for creating this majestic bridge, which is the Sydney Harbor Bridge that spans between the 2 sides of Sydney, and right, how that became an iconic thing. And when they were trying to create it, it was crazy. Or like how much resistance and how much reluctance and how many challenges stood in the way of building the Sydney Opera House, right? And those are all like, because they're sports and they're Sydney based, and they're talking about like putting things in context that like are easy for people's lives. People can understand them, and so use things like that people relate to make your point for you, right? Because I can tell you, change is coming no matter what. So you just got to be prepared. That's not a very compelling way of putting it. But if I talk to you about like, hey, look, so when Nick Saban, this is how change took place at the University of Alabama. Nick Saban, one of the things he focused on was just making people throw their tape and their trash in the garbage can, right? Because that was symbolic of taking responsibility for yourself and not just waiting for somebody else to do the work for you because you're better than somebody else. Everybody, every day, has to do their job. And it's as little as like putting your dirty laundry in the laundry bag, right? Your mom and dad will probably be glad I'm telling you this right now. So put your laundry in the laundry bag, in the dirty clothes bag. But it's stuff like that that puts a little bit of a hook on the on the story. And so that's, I don't know if that answers any question about public speaking, but it's just like, understand what you're trying to convey, and then try to tell it in a way that's like going to hit people in a way that they can understand, or in an emotional way.
So change is a certainty in life. So tell me about how you see change in your own industry. How do you think the live entertainment industry is going to change, over the next decade?
Over the next decade, the live entertainment business is likely to change a lot, because change is always happening, right? If we look at the difference from 10 years ago to now, it's changed a tremendous amount. I think, though, what we'll see is that there won't necessarily be one dramatic change. It'll just be a series of slow changes, right? I don't know how much news or anything you read right now or pay attention to, but one of the things that happens is everybody's talking about this idea of the new normal. And what people seem to fail to realize is, if you look at history, the new normal looks a lot like the old normal did. So when we're looking at what business is going to look like, it's likely that it will look much the same, only different, is the way I describe it. But I think what you're going to see is you will see Um, I hope that the way that sports and entertainment is sold and marketed catches up with the rest of the world, because um, I podcast episodes, if anybody's curious, should go back and check Zoe Skaman, who came on about last week, I believe it was, and she talked about how bad the marketing on Broadway is, and she's absolutely correct, because it's been being done the same way for 50 years. And it's all waiting for the reviews to come out from the New York Times and the New York Post. And like they pull quotes from the thing, and most of it is awful. In a way, most of the marketing and selling of sports and entertainment is being done the way it was done 20 or 25 years ago. And it doesn't really do the unique aspect of these things justice, right? It doesn't talk about the experience. It doesn't tell the story as well as it should. It, it doesn't reflect how awesome it is to go to a game, right? I took my wife and my son to see Chelsea and Tottenham on Thanksgiving weekend about 2 years ago. And we had no idea, but the way that Tottenham tells the story of like the matches, and it was the most incredible thing ever, right? And we felt like we were part of the history, and it was just a great experience. That's a little bit lost in the way we sell things now. It's become a lot more transactional. So I hope I hope that's a change that we see. I hope that we are able to reintroduce and better introduce elements of storytelling, because the story is what, it's a conversation. I feel like these things are like a novel, right? There's our fandom, yours and mine, is just a chapter in a book that hopefully will go on long after we're done, right? So I hope that comes back. I hope that we do a better job of pricing to make sure it's accessible to people. I hope we do a better job of getting kids involved in sports early on, so that we have a larger funnel of people who have a natural and lifelong love of sports and concerts and going to events and being around people. I hope those things take place. Are those predictions? I hope so. But I don't know if I don't know if I dodged your question, or if I just put a list of hopes together.
Well, no one knows exactly what's going to happen, but I think that's a pretty good guess.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, most of the people, the great thing about making predictions about the future is like when you're wrong, and you're like, well, nobody knew. So I just said,
I knew it all along.
We're gonna VR is gonna be great, and you're gonna be able to stand at shortstop, right? It's gonna be amazing. And if you can't do it, it's because you don't want to do it. Yeah. And then I could just like drop the mic and I've been out.
So you gave some great quotes earlier, about change. What other, do you have any quotes that stuck out to you throughout your life?
Quotes. The one I do come back to, right, is the Pat Riley one. It was in October of 1995 was the first time I heard it. And so Pat Riley became the head coach and the president of the Miami Heat in July of 1995. I believe it was like July 5th. It was early July, and they did commercials for Pat Riley because the Heat were awful at the time. They didn't have any real star players on the team. So Pat Riley was the star, and they did these series of commercials, and it was that Pat Riley one. That thing is stuck with me now because that's 95. So this is 25 years, right? I guess is right. And so Pat Riley was, he's in like a shadow, and he goes, change. The only thing that's certain in life is change. But when she rears her beautiful face, you embrace her, because change is the only thing that you have. And that stuck with me every day, because at the time I would have been 20 years old, 21, something like that. And like, I didn't know, right? Because I didn't grow up in an environment where I had the opportunity or the inclination or the knowledge to do something like you're doing, to explore things, right? So I was making it up as I went along. And, and that quote really struck a chord with me, that obviously, because I use it constantly, still sticks with me. And I think it just highlighted like the power that you have to create your own future and to create opportunities for yourself. And, if I think about it, that's still what really is like at the heart of what I'm doing, is like helping people understand that change is coming no matter what we do. We can't control it, but what we can do is hopefully use the fact that change is coming to create opportunities for ourselves, and opportunities that will allow us to be have a better future, to create a better future, to do more cool things. And if there is any theme, it's that. It's like, just recognizing that nothing stays the same, right? If you, another quote would be, I think Howard Zinn, it's you can't be neutral on a moving train, and you can't. You have to like keep moving, because if you're not moving forward, then you're sliding back, because nothing stands still. And and those two things, that they really have stuck with me over the years. And it's the only times that I've really struggled in my career or my life is when I've been kind of paralyzed and I have not been pushing forward. And that's it's something that, like, knowing that that was the case during the pandemic, it was like, can I do to help myself make sure that I don't fall into a state of paralysis? Because I know that that is someplace where I can fall into, and then it ends up having bad outcomes for me. And and it's happened two or three times in my life. And being conscious of it has helped a lot. So those two quotes are really they've stuck with me, because it's all about making sure that you remain proactive and that you can focus on creating the circumstances for your success.
Yeah, I really like that Pat Riley quote about embracing change. I mean, if you look at the companies,
I've looked for this commercial, I can't find it. I cannot find it.
I mean, if you look at who has embraced change, it's the companies that we all know. Amazon. I mean, the companies that you work with, Amazon, Best Buy, Nike. Those are the companies that are embracing change, and it's why they're our future, I feel like.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's not easy too, right? I mean, I never. Again, like if anybody's listening to this and they want to listen to any of the podcast episodes, I would tell them to listen to Zoe Scheme. And I think it was depending on how quickly this goes up, it was August 19th or something. It went up because Zoe we talked about this process of how do you help people see that you need change. And I'm usually like I'm a little more of a we had two different approaches to it. Neither one's necessarily right or wrong, but her approach was really great. And she was like, let me show you what could happen if you do change. So hers was like about painting a picture of a brighter future, which I think is probably a little more effective than like going, look, here's what's happening to you. You're not recognizing. If you look at where you're at in the market, right? And I was like, well, I think if I combine the two, it's really, really powerful. Where like, look, this is where you are, but if you do embrace these changes, here's where you can get to. And change isn't easy. It's difficult, right? It's we're wired to want things to have some stability and some normalcy to them, but that's not necessarily the environment we live in right now. And so the risky move is to not embrace change, is to try to keep things the same, because that's where you're likely to get in trouble.
Yeah. 2020 is the perfect example of having to embrace change.
I had some big plans, and those have all gone out the door. So, so yeah, 2020 should have taught us the lesson that like you do have things are very fickle. And so the only thing you can control are the things you can control, because there are environmental changes. And, and by environmental, I mean, obviously the physical world, but like the business world, your personal relationships, you have all these things that you might not have control over, but you can always control the actions you're taking and the things that you do. And so it's, up to you to do the best you can to control the things you can control.
All right, Dave, I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for speaking with me.
Of course. I'm glad to do it.
Great.
I hope that people, oh my God, they'll be like, Jacob, how did you get this guy? Because like you've had such great people on, and then you got Dave. What's
All right. Well, yeah, it was really great talking with you. I love learning about, your career and your advice.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to hook up like this. Hey, thanks for checking that out. Make sure you visit Zach's website, howtogetajobinsports.com. Check me out. I'm at davewakeman.com. You can follow me on the social media. I'm at David Wakeman on the Twitters, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. If you like what I'm doing with the podcast, if you dig some of the stuff that I'm up to, there's a couple things I'd like to point you towards. First of all, if you like the podcast, please share it with somebody who might benefit from it. If you've already been sharing the podcast, I'd love it if you'd rate it and review and subscribe. We're on all the major podcast platforms the last time I checked, so make sure you do that. All right, all these things help. They help people find it. The listenership still in the pandemic is strong despite everything. So I appreciate that. I can't thank you nearly enough. Make sure you check out my newsletter. It is Talking Tickets. It is my weekly ticketing newspaper that is dedicated specifically to folks in the live entertainment business. You can get it at talkingtickets.substack.com, where I will give you 5 stories, analysis, tips, and action items that you can use to help your business recover from the pandemic. So check that out. Also, I do a weekly strategy email on Sunday. It's called The Business of Value, and you can get that one at businessofvalue.substack.com. So Talking Tickets is talkingtickets.substack.com, and Business of Value is businessofvalue.substack.com. They're both free. They are probably the 2 most personal things I do each week, so check them out. As always, make sure you check out my friends and partners, Booking Protect, the global leaders in refund protection. That's www.bookingprotect.com/home. Check out the blog. Check out some of the ebooks and some of the things we've done. We're working on pulling together some new stuff to share with you as the recovery and as the pandemic works its way through our system. We want to be there for you as partners and as places that you can find good ideas to help you and your organization recover. In that same vein, make sure you check out the We Will Recover initiative, which is at wewillrecover.live. It is a project pulled together by Einar, Martin, and the Activity Stream team that is focused on recovery. Martin and Einar have pulled together people from all over the world with new ideas, new classes, webinars, anything imaginable, and as much as they can to make sure that folks have the resources, the tools, and the ideas that they need to recover from the pandemic. There's a new series of folks with ideas going up this week. Friend of the pod, Aubrey Bergauer, was just on talking about not wasting this crisis and looking at it as an opportunity to rethink your business and focus on the customers and the fans and the subscribers, which is just the most basic marketing 101 thing that we should be doing. But there's so many great ideas up there. So check it out, wewillrecover.live. And as I said at the beginning, I think we are 41 days away from an election right now. In the United States, we vote at a lower rate than most westernized, industrialized countries. Make sure you get out to vote. Make sure you make sure you're registered. Make sure you know the rules and the laws and the procedures to vote, either in person or by mail in this year's election. A resource that I have been supporting and trying to help as much as possible is ivotedconcerts.com. Emily White and her team have done a great job pulling this thing together. It's tons and tons of great artists. ivotedconcerts.com. The hashtag is ivotedconcerts on Twitter. Check them out. Make sure you voted. Make sure you're registered to vote. If you're not in America, encourage your friends to vote. Make sure people participate. It's the simplest thing you can do to be a part of a democracy. It's like the price of admission. So make sure you get ready to vote. As always, look, I know the pandemic's been hard on people. Send me an email. Let me know what you're up to. It's dave@davewakeman.com. I want to hear from you. So many people listen to the podcast. So many people engage with all the crazy stuff I do. I want to make sure that I'm there to help you, talk to you, just be someone to listen in case you need it. So send me an email. Let me know how you're doing. dave@davewakeman.com. And I will talk to you soon. Okay? Take it easy.